also in Europe, with a very diverse background. I mean, you name it. I mean, administration, finance, human resources, program management, project control, from lower levels to middle management to executive levels. I mean, before my current assignment in Uganda, I was UNHCR's director for business transformation program based in Geneva. So it's been, with all these experiences, I've seen the evolution of processes, systems in UNHCR over 31 good years.
Right.
And I have not been shy to voice out my own views on how some of these processes could be improved over the years. So with all this in mind, and also mind you, we are at a very, very critical time. I've been asked this question: why do you want to become High Commissioner at this time, when we have a financial meltdown?
Right.
Everything seems to be going down,
No, but
crashing.
Me myself, I'm interested in knowing that. But before we get to that point, let me take you back to your background a little bit. You were Ghanaian.
Yes.
Do you mind tell us a little bit about your upbringing? Where did you go to school? What really motivated you? Have you always been this ambitious?
Yeah, that's very interesting.
I mean, you got to be ambitious to be able to aim at the UNHCR High Commissioner's position.
But that's right. I mean, I believe that everyone should have some ambition in them. I mean, you should have some ambition.
So how did it begin?
I started. Let me start from my secondary school. If I take you back,
no.
Go too
Let's
far
start from
back.
secondary school.
I attended Ghana National College in Cape Coast. I mean, which I think still is one of the best schools in Ghana. Best secondary schools. Even back then, it was probably even better.
Sure.
From 1974 to 1981, from 1 to the upper 6. Then thereafter, I was in the University of Science and Technology, but you would also remember that in the early 80s, when Jerry Rawlings launched his revolution, the universities were closed because of demonstrations that the students embarked on. Initially, the students were very much in favor of the revolution, but there were some differences somewhere along the line, and then that provoked a lot of demonstrations on the different campuses. That is when the schools were closed. So as a first-year student, with the closure of the schools, I couldn't have stayed idle because we all supported the revolution.
Right.
We wanted Ghana to change.
Right.
So I joined a volunteer group. That you may recall that was deployed in all parts of the country. Some went to carry cocoa from the hinterlands, to the ports, because Ghana had to make money. That was a time that we had drought in the country. There was a lot of hardship in the country. So I volunteered for this organization. And through that, I gained a scholarship to go to Cuba, to go and continue my studies in Cuba. At the time, the universities were closed and no one knew when they were going to be opened. So it was a great opportunity for me to leave the country then. This was in 1983. And I would spend 6 years in Cuba where I pursued a master's degree in agronomic engineering. Then coming back in 1989, I did national service for 2 years, with the Ministry of Agriculture, where I managed some projects in the Eastern region, but I wouldn't go into those details. Then thereafter, joined that voluntary organization through which I had gained the scholarship to go to Cuba. But this time, it was a statutory government institution. It was called the National Mobilization Program, which has become the National Disaster Management Organization. So I joined them, and within 2 years, I had been promoted to the rank of Principal Liaison Officer. This is where I came into contact with refugees, and this is where I started my humanitarian work, working on refugee programs for Liberian refugees and also for Togolese refugees at that time. And then through that, I came to know of UNHCR because we were partners to UNHCR. Right. It was the main government counterpart of UNHCR.
Okay.
So it was through that I got to know of UNHCR. there was an opening which I applied for. I mean, started in a very small field office in Hohoi, in the Volta region.
Within the UNHCR?
With UNHCR,
right.
I mean, a very small office there. I mean, I did not have a desk.
Okay.
Because it was a small office. I mean, we did a lot of field monitoring, livelihood projects for Togolese refugees in northern part of Volta region at the time. I mean, so from there I would, I mean, be redeployed into administration. And by the way, as I told you that I had studied agronomic engineering, so but I was redeployed into administration because the then representative had found something good in me, and that I was very organized and could help temporarily in administration. What was supposed to be a temporary engagement in administration became even more permanent. I mean, and I had to regularize my newfound profession in administration. I enrolled for MBA, I mean, with the University of Phoenix in Arizona, and also sat for the UN finance, a competitive finance examination, and passed it, and therefore I became an admin finance officer and then a finance officer for project control.
All within the UNHCR? All
within UNHCR. That would see me go on my first mission to the Congo. I mean, and that's where I started learning French, actually. I had made several attempts to learn French in Ghana.
In Ghana, you couldn't?
Yes, I mean, even enrolling, as I was the only dad in the class at Alliance Française at the time, but then I went to Congo. And then things picked up from there on. From the DRC, I came briefly to Ghana, and I was appointed my first actual full international assignment in Afghanistan. And it's you may call it a coincidence, I mean, that the current High Commissioner, Filippo Grandi, was the UNHCR representative in Afghanistan at the time.
Oh, there?
That's right.
Interesting.
I mean, where I was appointed as admin finance officer in Kandahar, which at the time was the most difficult duty station in Afghanistan. That was shortly after 9/11. Yeah, it was really difficult. UNHCR was there purposely to receive refugees, I mean, who had fled Afghanistan under Taliban rule, and the Taliban had been deposed. So UNHCR was there to help them return and reintegrate in Afghanistan.
So the current UNHCR High Commissioner was then the UNHCR High representative in Congo when you were there?
No, in Afghanistan. In Afghanistan.
When you went there?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes, that's
so
right.
Would you say that all these things have prepared you for this current position that you are applying for?
I wouldn't say so. At that time, I was not thinking of.
But I mean, in retrospect.
Yes, I mean, this is my 10th assignment in UNHCR in Uganda. I've been everywhere, literally speaking. And this has equipped me a lot to see different contexts, seeing the evolution of the rules. So if appointed as High Commissioner, I mean, I will just hit the ground running. I've seen it all happen in 3 decades.
Interesting.
Yes.
Just out of interest, did the current did you notify the current High Commissioner that you were putting in your bid?
Oh, yes, I did.
And did he remember you came to meet him at Afghanistan?
No, but yeah, of course. I mean, yes. I had to.
Right.
I'm representing him in Uganda,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to. I mean, and he has been very supportive.
Wonderful.
Very, very supportive, and shared his own experiences with me. Because he was in UNHCR, left UNHCR, eventually became the High Commissioner for UNRWA, and then came back to UNHCR. Yes.
So we'll come to the big issues, but the last night before you got up and told your family or your wife that I'm going to put in my bed, what was going through your mind?
No, I mean, I would say that I was fortunate enough that
I'm asking this question because, I mean, if you look at the history of UNHCR, since 1950 or so that it was formed, not a single African has even dared, put up his name. So I'm wondering, the night before, when you decided, listen, enough is enough, I'm going to try this.
That's right. A little correction here. I mean, not an African, sub-Saharan African.
Sub-Saharan African, okay.
But there's somewhere in 2005, there was a Tunisian who tried it. But I'm saying that when I got to know of the vacancy notice, and surprisingly, I mean, nobody knew how the UNHCR High Commissioner was selected. I mean, including myself, I'm a senior colleague in the organization. You will be there, and then all you hear is that the High Commissioner has been appointed. I mean, so the process was not very clear, I mean, to anybody. I mean, even now, I would say it's not very, very clear to the general public. I mean, so there was no way I was even thinking of vying for that position. I mean, because some candidates had already started campaigning a year prior to the opening of the vacancy. So in my mind, well, maybe it went through member states and people were nominated and they are campaigning until a very, very good friend of mine, I mean, shared the application with me, said, I've seen the requirements and you more than qualify, I mean, to apply for this.
Do you mind mentioning this person's name?
No, that will come later. That will come later. Okay.
No, I'm asking because what did the person see in you?
People who are close to me and some of whom have worked with me. I mean, it's not only, there was somebody who I mean, shared the application with me, but others also followed and said that, why don't you try this? And I was wondering why they were telling me to try this. I mean, but we've seen you. Uganda being the biggest refugee program in Africa, and together with the team, I mean, we have changed things. I mean, we have turned it around. I mean, the operation was I mean, in the bad press for all the wrong reasons, but we've managed to change things. We've been innovative. We've been very, very efficient in Uganda. In fact, there's a paper that I authored, I mean, with contributions from my team on efficiencies, which the hierarchy shared with all regional bureau directors to share with the countries under them, that this is how to do business. I mean, by trying to be very, very efficient in what you do. So that is it. So with this, I also reflected for some time when I got this encouragement. I looked at the job description. I said, but I thought this vacancy had already been announced. But this was end of August, actually.
This year?
Yeah, end of August. So I decided to give it a shot, and thankfully I was supported fully by the government of Ghana. I mean, I owe His Excellency the President, the Foreign Minister, Minister of Interior, and many supported me. I mean, they saw my CV, and I think some of them had listened to the interview that we did in Uganda in 2023. Yeah, that's right. Yes, I mean, so I got that full support from them, and many others who, as soon as they heard that I was vying for this position, I mean, the words of encouragement were sometimes overwhelming. I mean, that's what gave me the courage to go forward. And then only to learn that no African had tried. When I was starting, I didn't know the history of who had tried and who had not tried, and so on and so forth. And I must say, including some of my seniors who are on retirement, I mean, have reached out. They are very, very excited, both African and non-African, that somebody would step up from the global south, I mean, to also vie for the position of High Commissioner.
Interesting. Yeah. So I'm glad to note that, you know, the government of Ghana, both the president and the foreign minister, have thrown their weight behind you. Any other support from any other African country?
I mean, moral support is overwhelming.
Wonderful.
Overwhelming. I've had the opportunity of meeting, having some bilateral meetings with some African delegations that went to
the General Assembly?
No, the UNHCR's executive committee meeting that took place a couple of weeks ago, and their support is overwhelming. It's overwhelming.
Very good.
And I must say that 31 years of my professional and personal life played out in public. I mean, that also gives me the confidence. I mean, that I believe that I have what it takes to be able to vie for this position. Yeah.
If you have just joined us, we're having a very interesting fireside chat dialogue with the UNHCR representative in Uganda, who is contesting for the UNHCR High Commissioner for Refugees position, the only African so far from Sub-Saharan Africa who has thrown in his bait. And we're having this conversation. If you have just joined us, please, you can send in your questions. I know there are burning questions on your heart. Send them through. We're going to put them to him, and then he's going to answer every question for you for the next 35, 45 minutes before we leave this studio. My brother, again, let me congratulate you for this bold initiative.
Thank you.
But let me come back to the big issue. You talked about innovations that you have brought about in Uganda and authoring the paper, which has grown to the entire spectrum of UNHCR. The question is, currently the way UNHCR, what are the four key things? We'll come to funding. Funding is one of the big things, but I always tell my colleagues that funding is not the only thing. Because if you have the funding, but the internal structures and all of that are not working optimally, the funding will dissipate. So what are your four key, if you like? You may have a lot, but for us Africans, we are interested in the four key things that Matthew is bringing to the table, for which all of us, all Africans, should go on our knees and pray that the selection committee would pick on him to be the first African High Commissioner for UNHCR.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, an interesting question. I mean, I've had this question come to me in diverse forms, but it's interesting, the way you've put it. I mean, UNHCR, unlike many other UN agencies, I mean, does not deal on one theme only. I mean, we have UN agencies that deal in thematic areas, whether health, education, environment, industrialization, intellectual property, and so on and so forth. UNHCR deals with forcibly displaced persons. These are persons who need some of everything. So does it mean we are going to do everything for everybody? That is daunting. We would wish to, but we don't have the mandate, the expertise, and the wherewithal, I mean, to be able to do everything from A to Z for forcibly displaced persons who need what you and I would also need. So the first thing is this, that to refine the focus of our attention, that has to be refined, because of the will to do some of everything for everybody, we've seen ourselves spread in several areas of endeavor. We do education, we do health, we do water and sanitation, we do environment, we do livelihoods, we do protection, we do, you name it. Sure. Everything that a human being would need, we do it. But like I said, we cannot focus on everything. So we have to refine what we have the comparative advantage to do. That is protection. UNHCR is a protection agency. So the first thing I'm going to do is to make sure that focus is refined. Okay. Refined, because everybody will say that, some would argue that everything that we do for refugees is core, because they are human beings, they need some of all these things. But we have to be focused, laser focused on what we have comparative advantage for. So that is the first thing. Okay. Then secondly, with whom do we work? Because we do a lot of emergency response. And when refugees are coming into the country, they come sometimes in their thousands across the borders. I mean, so we have a methodology of responding to such crises at the borders when refugees are coming in. And to be able to avoid bureaucracies, we work with NGOs. Okay. They are very fast, nimble, easy to deploy. Work with NGOs and the host governments, either national or local, to respond to these emergencies. But then, what I've seen, what I've experienced is that these emergency structures that we put in place, and by this I mean support in health, education, shelter, registration, everything, have remained for decades. That was not the initial intention. The initial intention was quickly get people off the borders, support them to settle down quickly. But then their support and assistance should be integrated in the national systems already. But we've had situations whereby UNHCR and partners have continued this modus operandi for decades. I mean, it's not justifiable to say that UNHCR should continue covering education bills for a refugee population that has been at a particular site for 50 years. Wow. It's a development issue now. You get what I mean? So refining our focus on what we do and who we work with, we would work with NGOs, the local governments and the national governments during the emergency stage. But it should not go beyond a certain, it depends on the context. 3 years or so could be a good cutoff point.
Right. But then what happens if the people have not been settled?
No, I mean, that's why right from the beginning, we work with the local government, local institutions. Right. And by the way we work, there is a lot of duplication in some of the things we do. Look, local governments, no matter how rudimentary the structures are, they support the population.
Right.
When I worked in Ethiopia, at the time, Ethiopia had about 1 million refugees for a population of 100 million. You get what I mean? It was only 1%. Refugees constitute 1% of the population. In Uganda, refugees constitute about 3.5% of the population. So, if the government is able to cater for
that population,
that portion, then why would we say that no? We have to have very specialized services for refugees for decades. It doesn't make sense at all.
Okay.
You know, so we have to quickly graduate from that emergency support systems into a more stable system. Right. And this is where the other organizations come in. UNICEF and co are very, very well equipped when it comes to education. I mean, and let me tell you one thing, that with WFP, for example, with a population of more than 5,000 refugees, food for that population is no longer UNHCR's mandate. It's WFP's mandate. They have the wherewithal to handle that more than UNHCR. Can we think of doing the same for other sectors? That is a long discussion that we have, but we have to have that discussion. So with whom we work, first refining what we do, and once we know we are laser focused on what we do, I mean, with whom do we work, at what stage of the displacement, what do you call it, cycle, you know? Then how do we do business?
Right.
You get what I mean? The way we do business, I mean, still working with NGOs,
local organizations.
And then how are we including refugees themselves? There are so many things that refugees can do better. In fact, in Uganda, we signed last year about 32 grant agreements with refugee-led organizations. And that helped us a lot to reduce our bill. Instead of engaging expensive international NGOs to do certain things, I mean, we engage refugee-led organizations to do it. So, how we do business is also the key issue, because of the way we are structured to work with NGOs, we are not structured to work with the government ministries.
Okay.
Whereas the other UN organizations or UN agencies are structured that way. So if you're going to deliver as one, and we have different modalities of implementation, how do we work effectively as one?
That's right.
You get what I mean? So that has to be refined. If you're going to be successful in delivering as one, that has been the mantra of the UN, that we have different and overlapping mandates. And also that is one of the reasons why I said being a High Commissioner now is so pertinent, in the sense that there's a big discussion happening now. After 80 years, doesn't the UN need to be reformed fundamentally? You get what I mean? So refining what we do, who we work with, and how we work is fundamental. At the end of it all, I mean, I will go beyond 4. At the end of it all, who are we targeting? The refugee.
Right.
And that will also link to the finance issue. I'll just touch a little bit upon it and wait for your big question on finance.
Yes.
We want to make sure that the refugee is empowered.
Okay. And how do you intend to do that?
Self-reliant.
Okay.
I mean, that is one way of addressing the financial crisis.
Okay.
if refugees are empowered, self-reliant, they will be able to cover for some expenses, health, education,
of course,
and things like food, instead of being relying on handouts for decades. So refugee self-reliance is key, and beginning right from the onset of a crisis. We've spoken about it, we've sung about it, but is it effective? Our overheads are so high that we are not able to dedicate full resources to refugees.
Interesting.
So high. I mean, I don't want to scare you with any figures here, but I've been in this.
Of course, 31 years of...
Exactly.
Sure.
That if you look at UNHCR staffing budget, administrative budget, plus the partners' staffing budget, administrative budget, it takes all the money.
Interesting.
How much goes to the refugee? Refugees? Very little. I want to have this reversed completely.
This is interesting coming from you, with somebody with 31 years of experience within the UNHCR. But the question somebody will ask is, as an African, of course, we have Kofi Annan was there at the helm of affairs in the UN, and Ngozi is there at the World Trade Center, with WTO and all of so. An African can do it. The question is, would you get the internal support?
Internal from who?
From the UNHCR staff themselves.
Oh, of course. There is this...
if as you were saying, if a greater percentage of your budget is to take care of all other things and only minor of it go to the refugees themselves, are you going to get the support? Aren't you going to take food from somebody else's table?
Many, let me say most people working for UNHCR are working because they love the work they do. They are humanitarian. Many. We have had internal surveys about how people feel about their work. People are passionate about their work. And what I'm wishing for, I'm not the only one wishing for that. There are many well-meaning staff who wish for the same thing. You get what I mean? So it's not something new. What is new is who would implement it, unapologetically.
Interesting.
That is it. And
Crentsil has all it takes.
Yeah, I can assure you.
Implement it unapologetically.
That's right. That's right. And being in the organization for a long time, some of these views I'm expressing, I'm sure if there are any colleagues who are listening, they are not surprised at all. I've voiced out these feelings.
Oh, wow.
I've several times said that we need to change the way we do business.
Interesting.
And that this is not sustainable. It's not sustainable. In whose interest are we? Somehow UNHCR has become like the carpenter that makes the coffin. You get what I mean? That the more people die, the more business the carpenter has. But we have to work ourselves out of a job. It's difficult to say it, but to say it bluntly, that yes, if we are able to also contribute towards working ourselves out of a job. Before we came to UNHCR, everybody worked somewhere. You get what I mean? So we don't have to feed off the woes of refugees.
Right.
And donors have been given for decades. Their aim is to resolve this issue. So if you are not resolving this issue, they will certainly be unhappy.
I hope the donors are listening to you and also to put their weight behind you and say, listen, this is the man we want him to come and bring about the information that we are looking for. But let's go back to the big issue, Matthew. Funding.
Yes.
We've talked about it, a number of people have raised it, but it's a real practical challenge for the UNHCR now.
Yes.
With all the cutting being done, especially from America, even Germany themselves have cut back. How an African High Commissioner, how are you going to be able to raise funding to run the operations of the UNHCR?
Okay. Let me start by saying that if more money will solve the problem, it would have been solved a long time ago.
Interesting.
Yes. And then, when you talk of donors, what do you mean by donors? Do you factor in the receiving countries and how much they spend, how much resources they put at the disposal of these refugees? You monetize it, and you see that even the receiving countries
pay more.
They pay more.
They donate more.
Exactly.
In terms of land.
Look, everything, security. Your security is compromised. You have so many people at your backyard. You have planned for X number of people in your national development plan. Suddenly, you have 1 million more, 2 million more coming. But you have to cater for them. So a lot comes from the host countries themselves. That is one.
Okay.
Secondly, donors who have been contributing have largely been North America. The U.S. has by far, contributed more than any country. European Union and individual countries in Europe. We have Japan, we have Korea. Australia pays some contributions there, and so on. I didn't want to go down that because I would miss very important donors also. Yeah. They have been contributing not because of who is at the top, but because they want to address a problem.
Fantastic.
So donors would definitely contribute, and I've worked with them. Once they know that we are being efficient and we are achieving results so that they don't have to pay the bills forever, they would contribute. So that notion that if there's an African there, people will not contribute is a fallacy.
I'm asking that question because if you look at the contemporary, the other contestants, these are individuals coming from supposedly donor countries or donor organizations that have supported UNHCR for centuries. And now an African country, has donated. Unless, of course, the issue of what comes from the receiving countries and their contributions had to be factored into it. But the assumption is that Africans are the receiving end. How do you, as an African, contesting with other candidates who come from donor countries, going to be able to leverage on that?
First, and then let me give you some homework. That is, if you look at current and past high commissioners and the countries they come from, go and find out how much these countries have contributed to UNHCR.
Okay.
That is the first question.
Okay.
You get what I mean? Yeah. So somebody may come from a donor country, but what that country provides very small compared to the big budget. We've had our budgets or income reaching about $5 billion a year. How much do current and previous high commissioners' countries contribute to that bill? You get what I mean? Like I said, the wider donor community, including philanthropists, private individuals, the private sector, and so on and so forth, would contribute once they know that they are getting value for money. Nobody in Europe would want to encourage refugees going on very perilous journeys to reach Europe. They will prefer to resolve the problem at home so that people stay at home and they don't go and sometimes if they go in their numbers, it's a lot of pressure on these countries as well. So they would contribute to address the problem at home. Once they know that, yes, it's in the hands of a competent person, somebody who would be very transparent with them and work towards a solution. I am very certain that, yes, donations would come in, but we have to be efficient. We have to be efficient. Like I said, there is a lot of waste. Some of these figures I mentioned, they will scare you, but there's a lot of waste. I've seen it. Mind you, I was a finance officer.
That's what I was going to say.
I was a project control officer. I was a senior program officer. You get what I mean? I was a senior desk officer, deputy representative in charge of operations, representative, director of business transformation. I know where the leakages are. And I've preached against this. In our internal meetings, I've raised my voice. But if you're not at the helm, there's only so much that you can do. Yes, that's
interesting. You'll be surprised that we've already done almost about 40 minutes since we started. We'll go to some of the questions that have come in. There's an interesting question here. Maybe let me take that. He said, given the chronic underfunding of UNHCR, how do you plan to prioritize certain refugee crises over others, especially when crises such as South Sudan receive little media coverage?
Yes, this is an excellent, it's an excellent question.
Please keep sending in your questions because he's here. The African rep is here.
It's a very pertinent question. And let me answer this question by first letting you and the audience know that almost all UNHCR funding comes from voluntary contributions. From the central pot, assessed contributions, we have sometimes only about 3%. 97% comes from voluntary contributions. People willing to contribute.
Interesting.
And this is not sustainable. And when they contribute, a lot of them earmark these contributions either for certain activities or for certain refugee populations and so on. You get what I mean? So this kind of ties our hands because that's why we've been advocating for free earmarking so that UNHCR will determine where to apply these resources depending on needs. But if the money comes with strings attached that give it to this particular population or use it for this particular activity, our hands are tied.
Okay.
So some countries may not get the support. The US has been the one with the most flexible funding. I mean, the US has been giving us maybe about $2 billion a year. Flexible. And that has helped us a lot in...
Can assign it anywhere
Exactly.
you want.
Exactly. To assign it anywhere. So I'm sure that the US would review their stance on UNHCR once they know that fundamental changes are going to be made and it will be in the hands of somebody who has done this before, who has done it throughout his life and is willing to change things. And I'm sure, because that frustration of donor fatigue comes from the fact that we've done this for 40, 50 years for the same population group. Until when are we going to have this situation resolved? You get what I mean? Yes. So because of this, I will be advocating that UNHCR's contribution from the central pot, from assessed contributions of the UN, should be increased so that at least we have some base funding. Because many donors are of the assumption that UNHCR has got its own core funding and what they are given is a supplement to the core funding. You get what I mean? Yes. Such that they earmark what the supplement.
Right.
But if the base was increased from 3% to, we don't want to prescribe a figure, even up to 20%. Because responsibility sharing, has to be live up to the
Would you advocate at the UN that every member country contributes a certain percentage of their GDP towards refugee problems?
No, already every country contributes or is supposed to contribute. Yes, contribute. Right. Not for the refugee program, to the central pot of the UN and the Secretary General and the administrative bodies. Yes. What I'm saying is that what goes there, a significant portion should go to UNHCR because this is not a problem for Europe or North America only. It's a problem for the whole world. And therefore, it has to, the character of UNHCR should reflect, the funding for UNHCR should reflect its global character. Let me put it that way. To reflect its global character. So that concerns as raised by South Sudan will be addressed. But if we get a pittance, 3% and 97% is coming from voluntary contributions, what if it doesn't come? What do? We are handicapped completely.
Right. And how do you intend to leverage your experience and your expertise with the UN in making sure that you can, advance credible argument for a lot more to be given to you?
Yeah, because I will be speaking from practical experience.
You go there with your charts and everything.
Yeah, from practical
with your finance background and
yeah, that's right. No, from practical experience.
Sure.
This has been done. We've done this same thing over the years.
Doesn't work.
It has not worked.
Right.
So because if I have only 3% as my core fund, is this even enough to cover the bills at headquarters, let alone for the operations? Okay. And everything is voluntary.
If I hear you very well, and that's what excites me, that you are coming in as a UNHCR High Commissioner for Refugees, not only focusing on the money, and that you are saying that the money is very, very important and is needed, but beyond the money, a lot more can be done.
Exactly. A lot more can be done. Why don't we raise our voices, to stop the flow of refugees in the first place? I am from the global south.
Well, just to link that to that question, there's a question from somebody from Uganda. He said, what is the solution to the close to 2 million refugees in Uganda, given the dwindling funding? How would they be supported?
Yes.
That's which is similar to what you are...
Exactly. You see, this funding shortfall
There's another question. No, you answered.
The funding shortfall.
The questions are coming a lot.
That's right. No, I wish we would be here. I'd love to talk about this.
All right, sure. Go ahead.
Yes,
go ahead. If you grant me the time, then we'll continue. We'll go beyond 1 hour. Yes, go ahead. Okay, go ahead. Because the questions are coming.
Yes.
Audience, please send in the questions. Matthew has agreed to go beyond 1 hour, so please send in your questions. Let's address them.
Yeah,
Africa must know what you are bringing to the table.
That's right.
So please,
that's right.
Help us.
Let me say, the funding shortfall is not new.
Sure.
It has been coming.
Right.
You know, like they say that to be forewarned is to be forearmed.
Yes.
So it has been coming. What if we change things round? And by this, let me, since the question is coming from Uganda.
Yes, it's coming from Uganda.
It's coming from Uganda.
Yes.
Last year, do you know how much money came to Uganda from what we gathered? From the humanitarian channel only, $394 million US.
Wow.
And you add what came from development partners directly for refugee hosted areas. You might be talking about $500 million for managing refugees. I've asked this question in meetings. As a CEO, if you are given $500 million to run the refugee program in Uganda, would you do business the same way you are doing it?
No, you can't.
You can't. How much of it is going to the refugees?
Yes.
There has to be a fundamental change in the way we do business. So I'm advocating that I will change the modus operandi of UNHCR so that at least 60-70% of our funds go directly to benefit refugees, so that we can wean them off quickly of assistance. Because, I mean, if you are in your own country and you are supported by some microcredits here and there, I mean, to be able to stand on your own feet, after some time, then we will be justified to say that, look, we've done our best for you. If you are not able to help yourself, well, sorry.
But Mali, let's link this to the earlier point you raised about helping to address the causes of refugee and displaced people and all of that. Yeah. So the person goes back to his country where he started from, and the crisis is still there. How are you going to address all that?
But that is where, UNHCR, unfortunately, we deal with the aftermath of bad politics.
Sure.
Bad politics. We have other more competent bodies to deal with management of the crisis before they even happen.
Okay.
I'm going to add my voice, strongly to this.
Right.
I come from the global south.
Right.
I come from a developing country.
Right.
And I've seen how much our youth, we are losing the next 1, 2, 3 generations.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, what legacy am I leaving? Otherwise, next year I should be very comfortably retiring to go and sit under my mango tree and be drinking tea or something. But I think no. It is the time for us to be at the helm, to be at the table, to address some of these things. Those who are funding wars and all these crises in our neighborhood, we have to stand up. You have to stand up and advocate strongly against this so that the tide of refugee flow, is stemmed.
So how would all these your innovative ideas bring in on board? Where does it fit in the 1951 Refugee Convention and the 1967 Protocol?
Yeah, these are the pillars of what we do, refugee protection. Even though, the 1951 Convention is grounded on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
Human rights, yes.
That's right. Article 14, to be precise, the right to seek asylum.
Right.
So that is non-negotiable. It's non-negotiable. So these are instruments that we must protect. However, some countries have expressed some reservations. Some of the concerns I've heard is responsibility sharing. Does this instrument cover that responsibility sharing? There are other concerns that countries that bear the brunt of refugee programs, are they receiving any support, any compensation at all? To ease them of this burden. You get what I mean? So if we have to talk about the how to implement the provisions in these conventions, let's talk about them. Third country solutions and so on and so forth. Let's talk about them, but taking into consideration what the individual countries also say. I mean, this has been there since 1951. Things have changed since 1951 until now. The OAU has the OAU Convention 1969. Things have changed up to now. I mean, do we say that we are not going to talk about this? There are people who are afraid that if you open the convention, it comes out weaker. But what is the point of keeping a convention that people flout? They don't respect.
That's right.
And they don't implement, and there is no consequence for not respecting it. Isn't it better
to open up and
engage so that whatever we come up with, everybody will respect?
Right. There's another question here. In the light of shrinking humanitarian budgets, what mechanisms would you introduce to hold wealthier nations accountable for their commitments under the Global Compact on refugees, and how can Uganda's model of inclusion inspire global actions?
Yeah.
I think this is also coming from Uganda. There's another one here. Has Ghana started working towards seeking the support of your candidacy by African Union and even the support of other continents?
Yes. Let me start with the second one. With the second one, yes, that is true. Sure. Ghana has already.
Questions are coming in.
That's right. Yes. Ghana has already approached and is working with the AU.
Fantastic.
To secure that support as an African candidate. I'm the only African who has applied.
Absolutely.
And then let me say that I'm an African who is knowledgeable and who is bold and who is ready and willing to take the mantle.
And who is coming right from the trenches of the UNHCR.
Exactly. And then to the first question, that how do you hold wealthier nations accountable? I mean, talking about the Global Compact on refugees. The Global Compact on refugees is not legally binding.
Why?
It's not legally binding. It's a set of guidelines, principles that help nations to manage refugees. You get what I mean?
Yes.
And then it has 4 main objectives. I mean, first, to ease the burden on host countries.
Okay.
Second, I'm not saying it in order, priority. Also, to make sure that conditions in countries of origin are conducive for return, which is the most durable solution that we have. And also, third country resettlement. If voluntary repatriation is not an option for different reasons, I don't want to go off on a tangent, then third country voluntary repatriation or local integration is not an option, then third country resettlement is also an answer as a durable solution. And also self-reliance of refugees. So we have these 4 main pillars or objectives of the Global Compact on refugees, is to help nations to manage. It's not legally binding. Right. So how do you hold them accountable? Like I said, contributions are voluntary. How do you hold somebody who is voluntarily accountable? Yeah. That is why if we got substantial resources from the central pot, then I would say the UN, the General Assembly, the Secretary General, can hold the High Commissioner accountable. We have given you this. What happened? But if you are not funding, and there are volunteers funding, the volunteers have the right to demand what you are doing with their money. Yeah. So this whole thing of voluntary contributions, yes, it would always be important because they supplement a lot. That is what has kept UNHCR afloat for all these 75 years. Yes. So it is very, very important. But we should also have assured contributions coming from the central port where everybody has contributed to, because displacement, forced displacement, is the problem of everybody.
But UN is going to tell you they also are overstretched. How about that?
But I mean, so what is the alternative to that? You're overstretched, but we have to address it. First, let's help stem the flow of refugees.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay, so there's another question here. Given that more than 70% of refugees are hosted in low-income nations, why has UNHCR struggled to shift the global burden sharing equation? As as High Commissioner, what will you do differently?
Yeah, but I think I've
addressed that. So,
yeah,
but I mean,
I've addressed it. I mean,
yes,
in my previous answers.
Okay, so yes. Okay, so let's move on. If we ignore local communities it will be difficult for them to host the refugees. How do you plan to strike that balance?
Yeah, I mean, but this is something that I mean, it's part of the Global Compact on Refugees to ease the burden on host communities.
Right.
In Uganda, for example, we have about, I mean, nearly 2 million refugees, but the host communities amount to 2.4, 2.7 million refugees. And all our programs target both refugees and the host community. So it is part of UNHCR's modus operandi. And the Global Compact, and let me give a lot of credit to the current High Commissioner. It is under, during his tenure, that the Global Compact on Refugees came into being. There have been very monumental changes in UNHCR, I mean, over the last 10 years, but we have to continue. A lot of the good things that have been done, we have to sustain them and then introduce new things that would make the organization more sustainable going forward.
I listened to one of the debates you guys had in New York recently with other candidates. So the question I'm putting to you, Martin, is if you listen to all your contestants, what is it about your plan, that's completely different? I'm asking the same question, but another way. You listen to the others, the mayor, the German, and then the other lady from, I think, France or something like that. What is your plan? What about your plan that is completely different from theirs, and with specific reference to women refugees?
Yeah, I mean, look, I must say that all the candidates mean well.
Yes.
All of them. I mean, otherwise they would not have stepped up. I mean, these are people who don't lack jobs.
But what's your plan that intends to prioritize the needs of women refugees?
Why mine is different is that I'm speaking from practical experience. I've done it. Okay. I know how to do it.
What did you do for women refugees?
No, the women are always a priority.
Okay.
A priority. Let me give you just one example.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to...
one example. I took office in Uganda from 1st of July 2022.
Right.
By the time I got there, the operation had stopped buying soap and sanitary pads for new arrivals because there was no money. That's when I got there. Ask me,
you mean the women refugees who are coming in?
Yes, haven't walked long distances for days. They get to the border, the reception center, there was no soap and sanitary pads for them. I have reintroduced that.
Interesting.
I've reintroduced that even though funding has been going down and the number of refugees is going up. How did I do it? And if there are NGO partners who are listening, I reduced fuel allocation to NGO partners by 30% and to government by 10%. And all of a sudden, we had money to buy soap and sanitary material.
I'm sure you afford.
I mean, my role model was a woman. And that was my great-grandmother. I don't want to talk about her because I get very emotional when I go on that tangent. So definitely from lived experiences, I would make sure. I mean, and both the current and previous high commissioners have always prioritized support to women. And this is something that will continue. I mean, that's what I say. The other candidates also mean well. I mean, everybody wants to help, but who can do it best? Who has the know-how? And the will to do it best, not based on models or theory. With me, I'm not going to try to hit and miss. I've done it.
I like that.
I've done it over the years. So I'm not going to be listening to whoever is advising me should know that, yes, they know what they are talking about. I mean, because I will not just take any advice. I have done it. The others haven't done it. They must have done it, some migration issues here and there. That's true, but all of them mean well, and I hope that together we can put our ideas together.
So when it comes to humanitarian assistance with the need for long-term development and sustainable solutions for refugees and their host communities, how do you intend to bring about the balance? The humanitarian assistance with need for long-term development and sustainable solutions to refugees. How do you intend to balance that? You earlier started by talking about the fact that you want to address the causes of that bring about all this. But in terms of sustainable development, how do you intend to bring about that?
That's why I'm saying that. I mean, sharpening our focus. We cannot bite more than we can chew. You get what I mean? Development is not UNHCR's forte. That is not UNHCR's forte. But we link up with development partners to ensure that humanitarian funding, and development funding are well coordinated. You get what I mean? And I don't want to be citing too many examples from Uganda, but Uganda is the biggest refugee operation in Africa.
That's Uganda.
Yes, exactly. It has happened elsewhere in the world as well, whereby using humanitarian or development funding to address humanitarian crisis. For example, when it comes to provision of water, years back, the solution was to drill boreholes in refugee camps to address the water situation. This has changed completely. Now, water infrastructure for refugees and hosts are being put in place. So when the refugees go, the infrastructure remains
it's the community.
For the community.
Interesting.
That is it. And then building clinics, schools. In the very early days, all infrastructure for supporting refugees was supposed to be temporary. Temporary, and I've seen it happen that when refugees leave, UNHCR was supposed to lead the rehabilitation of the ex-refugee camps or settlements, restore it to what it used to be. So such that if permanent structures were put up, it would be difficult to break them. You get what I mean? So that was the plan. And that plan was based on the fact that refugees would stay very short periods in the country. But now, on the average, refugees stay in asylum countries for about 17 years.
That's about 2-3 generations.
You see, so if that is the case, then why do you invest in temporary structures? So the thinking has changed. If you're putting up a school, you put up a solid block school. Because when refugees leave, the locals would use it. But in doing so, would you want to use humanitarian funding to construct schools, or you will leverage the capacity of development funding, development partners, to help build these schools for both refugees and hosts? Because UNHCR used to be practically the only game in town when it came to refugee response, we got used to, and some local communities got used to UNHCR doing everything. But there are others who are better at doing certain things than us, and we have to leverage the advantages.
Do you think there's not been enough, consultation among the UNHCR agencies? Among the UN agencies, with respect to addressing?
The will is there.
Okay.
The way we are structured makes it difficult for us to really work together. We do our best.
Unless you do it at the local level.
Yeah, at the central level, there is that encouragement, but at the local level, we are structured quite differently. We have, for example, every agency has got its own administrative and finance unit.
Yeah, but for example, as you mentioned, if you go to the local community, there are some things UNHCR can do, others that UNICEF, for example, can do, and all of that. Can there be a conversation among all the heads of the UN?
We have it all the time, and where possible, we work together.
Fantastic.
Where possible, we work together. There are some achievements we can point to in this area. But then, when my position has always been this, that when others get on board to address refugee crisis, their support should be sustainable. It should not be temporary. That because there is funding, they are there, and when the funding dries up, they are gone, and UNHCR is left with a crying baby.
Right.
You get what I mean? It should be full engagement. I gave you the example of how UNHCR works with WFP.
Right.
And I would wish that we work with other agencies the same way.
Absolutely.
In education, for example, I'm throwing this idea, a wild one there. If we had an arrangement like that, beyond a certain number of refugee children, UNICEF would lead education, for example. And then we ask donors to channel resources through UNICEF, for example, when it comes to education beyond a certain number. Arrangements like this
can be done.
That's what I'm saying, that we have to put it on the table and discuss these things.
So in other words, all that we are discussing is that strategic thinking and visionary leadership is fundamental.
It's fundamental
in this whole.
You see, try to do things that people wished to do but they couldn't do. Some of these ideas may not be new, but the courage to start and finish is what is likely missing. Even in my own experiences, I mean, you go to an operation, you see that you have some legacy arrangements in place. It's difficult to change it. You get what I mean? The easiest thing to do is to go with the flow until your assignment is up 3 or 4 years, you go.
Get your pension.
Exactly.
Go and relax.
That is easy. And anybody at all can do it. It's more difficult to change course.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, of course, leaders that have actually brought monumental changes have always done so with a lot of courage and order. There's another question here, which probably I think will be our last question because of time. He said, climate displacement is growing rapidly, yet people displaced by climate disasters aren't legally recognized as refugees. How or will UNHCR advocate for expanding the 1951 Refugee Convention along with its protocol and OAU 1969 Convention to include them?
Yes.
That's very important. I think it's a very important question.
Very, very important.
Yes.
Very important. Yes. I mean, like I said, these conventions were made at a time
when there was no climate change.
No, we didn't have it. There was climate change happening, but at such a pace that it was not even an issue. That is why I would encourage dialogue. This is not UNHCR prescribing. Member states sitting and discussing how do we incorporate this. I mean, are we going to consider them the same way as we consider somebody who has had to flee from their country under conditions of 1951 Convention? For example, somebody who is fleeing from their country because of fear of persecution, because of their race, nationality, religion, political opinion, or membership of any social group. That is a typical 1951 Convention refugee. Somebody who has been displaced by environment, are you going to consider them under the same instrument? It's different. But are we going to have some instruments or some protocols in place to address that issue as well? I mean, without necessarily diluting what we have in the 1951 Convention and the 67 Protocol. We can have some instruments in place to address those ones. I mean, without necessarily embedding them in the Refugee Convention, I mean, of 1951, which is premised or predicated on different causes, different reasons, and so on and so forth. So I'll be very open to dialogue.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Matthew, I don't know what to say. I'm looking at the next UNHCR High Commissioner. But assuming that you have refugees across the entire globe tuning in and listening to us today, this is your camera. As somebody, an African looking at occupying this top position, talking to all these refugees across the globe, what is your message to them?
No, my message to them is this: that we are going to. I'm going to join those who have been crying loud for the cessation of the causes of refugee crisis in the world. That is the crux of the matter. If we stem the flow of refugees, we would reach far. I mean, people can stay in their own countries and then, manage their own lives. So that is fundamental, that I will not relent at all on advocating very, very strongly and fearlessly, I mean, when it comes to the causes of refugee flows. I mean, because I am directly affected. My neighborhood is directly affected. I mean, I'm not saying this out of theory at all. I'm affected. It breaks my heart to see that current future generations are being lost because of this. So that is one. And secondly, to engage refugees as much as possible in decision-making, in designing programs for refugees. Like I said, I mean, last year I signed about 32 grant agreements with refugee-led organizations. I mean, this has to be encouraged and expanded throughout the operations where we work. Refugee self-reliance is also something that I would encourage. The money does not necessarily have to come to UNHCR to do it, but then specialized agencies. And I'll also appeal to donors for a coordinated funding arrangement. Oftentimes, we have some duplications of funding. I'm going to a similar partners in the refugee program. So to also assure refugees that under my administration, UNHCR is going to be more efficient and focused on things that we can do best, things that only UNHCR and government can do, others may not be able to do. For example, when it comes to determining the status of a refugee, I mean, we have thousands of backlog. We don't have resources for that, and yet we are doing other things that other organizations or other agencies may be best placed to do. It comes to registration and identification. Access to justice is something that I'm going to be very, very strong on because, I mean, according to the different instruments, refugees should also have access to justice like the nationals. But in practice, this doesn't happen. Refugees, for minor misdemeanors, remain locked behind bars, sometimes for years. There's a typical case, I don't want to go into the details, where somebody was locked up for about 6 years before the case was adjudicated. It was for a minor offense and things like that. So I just tell them that there's hope coming. And I'm sure with that assurance, donors who have always wanted to solve this crisis would be fully on board.
I know this is not part of refugee issue, but let me put this question to you as being an African. What is your assessment of the youth, the unemployment situation in Africa now?
No, I mean,
and how scary is that as far as to the issue of refugees in Africa?
It's worse for refugees. I mean, the problem is already bad. I mean, the economic downturn is the issue. I mean, and that's why we need democracy to work in Africa. That is fundamental. With democracy working, with governments being stable and accountable, I think we'll be able to address many of these issues. Mind you, I mean, technology is also contributing to this. The use of AI, for example. I mean, there's a fear that is going to replace many jobs, but still, there are so many other jobs that the AI cannot replace. It would depend on stable, responsible, and accountable governments. So to contribute to that, I think I would add my voice. I mean, like I said, I mean, for some time I was thinking of just retiring, but I will not. I will have to add my voice to this to ensure that democracy is upheld, the rule of law is upheld, and governments are accountable. Sometimes embezzlement and corruption is what is eating into our societies. I mean, that is the plain truth. So you need responsible leadership, honest leaders with integrity. I mean, yes. And I can attest to that. I can say this freely. Like I said, 31 years my life has played out in public, professionally and personally. So this is it. This is what I will continue to advocate for going forward.
I'm just hoping that, Africa will be proud, and I'm sure in the next couple of weeks we're going to hear the name. The new UNHCR High Commissioner for Refugees is His Excellency Matthew Crentsil, the man that we hosted at Channel 63 Studios today, and I'm looking forward to that. I whether we should buy our champagne and put it somewhere, and then, but I'm proud of you, my brother. When I came to your office in Uganda to interview you, little did I know that a time is going to come where we're going to meet in our studio and be interviewing you on the sideline of your determination to become the next UNHCR High Commissioner for Refugees. No, I'm very proud of you.
Yeah, thank you, Emmanuel.
I'm very proud of you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. And then you can call me anytime. This is a discussion that I can have the whole day.
I can tell.
I'm very, very passionate about it.
I can tell.
And I see light at the end of the tunnel, and there is hope. It looks gloomy. And to address a question you asked earlier on, why become a high commissioner at this time?
Yes.
I mean, if it was easy, everybody could do it. It's difficult, and that's where we need, all our resources, full strength, everybody putting their shoulders to the wheel to address this situation. Absolutely. So for me, it is the best time to be a High Commissioner because of the problems that we are facing.
Interesting. Well, thank you so much for joining us in this wonderful discussion. My request is very simple. Africans, we believe in prayer. Let's all continue to pray for my brother Matthew Crentsil to be the next UNHCR High Commissioner for Refugees. I believe he can, I believe he will, and I believe he will deliver. And after his tenure, Africa will be proud with it. My name has been, and is always, Emmanuel Dare-to-me, your host for Channel 63. Thank you for watching. I'll come to you again very soon. My brother.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, je compte en français. Hein?
Ah oui, exactement. Merci. Merci à toi.
Okay. This is good. This is good. Right. This is good. And I'm excited. Okay. I'm excited. I'm really, and I like the questions coming.
Are we off?
No, we are off.
Okay.